Gilbert missed 6 tackles and made 23. Paulo missed 5 and made 26. Reid missed 9, but he did make 58, so he probably gets a pass.
What do you think of it, Ollie?
Well, I thought this
was
a gripping encounter, as he says. Is that the word you use? Gripping? Yeah. Well, it was definitely... it was obviously close. It was played at that finals intensity. But the big thing I noticed is it just seemed for at least about 60 minutes there, everything seemed to be going the Cowboys' way, but the Eels just hung on. You're reading off the stats there, but at one point during the game, I think I saw it was around the 60th minute. I think for the whole game, it was Parramatta had like 7 tackles in the Cowboys 20, and the Cowboys had about 30 in Para's 20. It just seemed like it was Parramatta just holding on and clinging on. And at that point, I believe it was Cowboys, they went 20-12, wasn't it? When they went up by more than a converted try, I thought, well, it's done here because the way this game is going, Parramatta are hanging in there. But it just seemed like giving the Cowboys that inch more than a converted try, I thought would be out of reach for the Eels. But obviously, late on, they got the wind in their sails, and I guess their hard work of actually holding on really paid off. For me, the standout individual was probably Shaun Lane. I'd say close to the performance of his career, at least in a game like that especially. But the forward pack as a whole off the back of that, like obviously Regan Campbell-Gillard scoring 2 tries, Isaiah Pupley was himself as well. I thought Mitch Moses kicked very well, and that's obviously heading into this Sunday against Penrith. That's going to be big, especially going up against Nathan Cleary. So I think it's a big positive for Parramatta that he was able to actually have a really strong kicking game. And that's part of what allowed them to cling on when the Cowboys were sort of getting everything going their way as well. But for the Cowboys, it's hard to really discredit anyone in particular, but it just seemed like all the players were, and I think I've said this about the Cowboys before in a game, all their players just sort of played their role that they needed to really well. The backs, they ran well, they ran hard. The forwards, they were really solid defensively, I think, as well. It was just sort of that kind of performance from the Cowboys, but in the end, the Eagles, as I said, just got that wind in their sails and they were able to go home with it.
Well, Parramatta shot themselves in the foot for the first half, definitely. I think they were completing somewhere around 52% or something after the first half, and then they come out and completed 100% in the second half. I don't think they made an error in the second half. So, you know, it's a massive turnaround the way that they did that.
We need to obviously touch on the forward pass. Is there any dispute? It was forward?
It was forward.
Yeah, it ended up obviously costing them the game. But that all being said, the Cowboys should have had ample time to win
It was
this game.
very early. You go back and listen to the way Todd Payton spoke about it, but I thought he spoke about it very well. They had plenty of time and opportunity to overcome that. Cowboys' execution was what let them down at the end of the day. They had numerous opportunities in that first half that they pushed too hard, I thought, at times. There was passes pushed when they didn't need to be pushed. They were kicking early sometimes when they didn't need to kick into certain parts of the field, and it ended up costing them at the back end of the game.
Even the execution in the back end, if we break this game down, like you said, the big turning point when it felt like they kicked away 20-12, in games gone past, even probably regular club games, Eels would have shut up shop and that would have been it. It would have actually probably been even a bigger gap. And I was just... And they looked gassed. They looked out on their feet and looked like fitness had run out for the Eels. And the way they were able to rally and then in the latter parts even defend, you've got to give them a big tick.
Their scramble defence was fucking amazing.
It was as good a defence I've seen from a Parramatta team probably in as long as I can remember, to be honest. And but when you talk execution, to my point, is Cowboys still felt like they were always going to score in the last 5 or 6 minutes. And I think they felt like they were going to score too, but they didn't quite know who was going to do it. And I think they were scared to give up possession, which took a kicking game out. They didn't want to... So then it essentially they were relying on probably a Val Holmes break.
An individual effort,
to score, or a Dearden barge over. And it just didn't happen. And they shut everything down pretty clinically, actually, in the last 5 or 6 minutes, Parramatta.
And I think the halves did sort of lose their head a little bit because they did. I think they pushed a little bit too early to try and get around Parramatta, and there was a couple of times they got pushed into touch. The ball went in behind players, or it was just dropped cold, either due to a poor pass or just someone having clumsy hands at the time. And they did seem to go very, especially once they did hit the lead, they drew everything back and just tried to play field position and possession, and As you mentioned, Parramatta got their head of steam up there for a good 20-minute period, and the Cowboys' halves went missing in that last half an hour.
Yeah, I agree.
They didn't seem to create any sort of opportunities for the Cowboys.
And I think Parramatta, because they shut Drinkwater down almost perfectly.
Yeah,
they took everything out of Drinkwater. So.
Yeah, he didn't have any opportunity to play, but I thought the Cowboys were doing everything that they needed to do for the first hour, really, to be in front. They traded blows with the Parramatta team. They kept it close, which I said they would need to do to win this game. And they looked more likely for probably 50 minutes of the game. They looked like they were going to score at many different times. And they were even bettering Parramatta's physicality for the first probably half an hour of the game as well, and intensity. They were technically really good, and as I said, they just didn't capitalise on a couple of opportunities. They gave away momentum and possession a couple of times. The big one was the one where Lane streaks down the field and goes down to the other end off the back of a poor Cowboys error, and then Lane streaks away down the field and they score off the back of that. Mentioned their cover and their scramble defence. It was brilliant from Parramatta. That tackle where Sivo put Tuolangi in touch right on the try line. Like Tuolangi scores that most weeks, and he got across there and got it. I mentioned the intercept for Lane. And
just probably underrated. Now I think of this, just what they've done with their edge defence in the last 6 weeks is pretty incredible from where they were.
Considering how poor it was in the middle of the year.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Now the more you think about it, kudos to whether it's Brad Arthur, whether it's a defensive coach there, an amazing effort.
Oh, yeah, their toughness and resilience, just to turn up time and time again, was brilliant from Parramatta. I don't know how much it takes out of them going into this weekend, because this was the more physical of the two games. And I dare say they'd be drained for a couple of days. I think they had the day off today, which they probably well deserved. But I thought there's a couple of the Cowboys that went missing, really. I thought Gilbert had one of his poorer games for the year, as did Haas. Not Haas, fucking...
Hess.
There's a coin in the jar.
They could have used Haas. Yeah, Hess and Griffin Neame, I thought struggled as well, considering how good he's been throughout the majority of the year. I mentioned the halves. I really thought that they lacked a whole heap of creativity in that last 20 or 30 minutes when they were looking for points and they needed them. Leilua and Tamalolo were really strong. Obviously, the 10-minute bin didn't help with JT, but and Nanai and Holmes were probably their best two players for the Cowboys, I thought.
Yeah.
Nanai was massive again, and so was Holmes. I tell a lie. Cotter was their best player on the field. Cotter was an absolute man possessed. I think he made 60-something tackles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I was blasting your ears off. No wonder.
He made close to 60 tackles, and he scored a try, and he was just making. I think he made around 18 hit-ups as well. What was it? It was somewhere around 60 tackles and without a miss.
Cotter was...
it was ridiculous.
45
tackles without a miss and 18 hit-ups, and he was super strong.
Apologies for blowing your brains out there, Barney. You had the wrong mic levels there. I can't believe you didn't say anything. You'd be deaf right now.
Sivo and Penasini were the best of the back line, I thought, for Parramatta. They looked really good ball in hand. They were making a lot of tackle busts and causing issues for the Cowboys' defence. Moses and Niokore were pretty good. Niokore, for a bloke who doesn't generally have a massive role to play in this team, he always does his job. Yeah, and he generally does a pretty good job of whatever role they give him.
I'll take him in any first-grade team.
Papali and Reid Mahoney again were really good. They just do their job every week. But it was the back rowers for Parramatta that ended up getting them over the line. It was Lane, Papali, and Madison again that just they add that extra bit of ball playing with their offloads, and they're really physical when they carry the ball. They're hard to stop. So
the evolution we've touched on enough, but the evolution of Shaun Lane this year is pretty phenomenal. He was almost a joke.
And it's come in sort
last year.
8 to 10 weeks?
Probably 3
He
months.
was going all right at the start of the year, but he wasn't knocking the door down. But this last probably 2 to 3 months, he's been tremendous.
Yeah, and just his ability. I don't think anyone hits a hole cleaner. Maybe Angus Crichton, and that could be partners in the World Cup. The way it's looking, just hits real clean lines and is strong. Takes people with him now. And is quick enough. He just
he's hard to
and just
wrap.
there and just
you can't
there.
wrap the ball up. He's got big levers. And
an underrated skill for back rowers is just being on the spot. And both these back rowers, manage to be on the spot a lot. They get a lot of loose ball or the deflection off a bomb.
Absolutely.
Pupley does too, and both are incredible here. Another bloke we haven't really touched on. Just got to work out which one I got to mute now when I do that. But Peter Hiku was fantastic, I thought. He was
absolutely.
Was really good throughout this whole game. He looked dangerous every time he had the ball. Was as close to a complete performance from him. I know he's been good all year, but he was almost their best. But a cracking game of footy. Like, it went right down to the wire, and I think even Para fans will admit 8 times out of 10 maybe they would have themselves expected a last-minute try from the Cowboys, and they held on. So
Para were under the pump for 70 minutes of this game?
Yeah,
like, there
most
was
of the
really
game,
only 10 minutes that they felt like they were the better or the stronger team. They never really seemed like they were much worse than the Cowboys, but they were under pressure for massive parts of this game.
It's funny, you can actually compare both games through that middle period. They were quite similar, and we saw Penrith streak away with it, and from a similar situation, Para pretty much almost got a second win, you'd say, and clung on. Yeah,
well, Para were up for the fight. The Souths realistically weren't. We'll get to that, but at half-time, they threw their toys out of the cot, the Rabbitohs.
Well,
But
any reason they stopped bombing Waka Blake? Can anyone work that out? He didn't even drop the first one. He got nowhere near it. It was in the same postcode, and then I can't remember him being kicked to again. It was slightly baffling. So, I'm sure
to me, it seemed like they were trying to get around him with the ball, and he was actually, for how many times I've slammed him during the year of him being off his wing and all the rest of it, he was actually pretty good in this one. So.
Yeah, a lot of the time when he gets hold of people, he's quite strong, and he's reliable.
He wasn't tremendous by any means, and he did make a couple of errors, but he was better than what he has been, especially in that Penrith game. But.
Any final words on this?
Cowboys, I think, will be kicking themselves. I think they'll go back and think that this is one that they probably should have won.
100% should have, yeah.
Going to need to work on maybe a little bit of ball playing in and around the ruck there where it went missing at the back end of the game. But, yeah, Parramatta will be stoked. But I've just got a little question mark about how bruised and battered they would be because the Cowboys did rip into them, especially in that first half.
They say grand final week's an art in itself, getting players through that. You hear a lot of interviews, and maybe that's overblown, But I think a lot of the coaches, and it's the first time here for BA, so almost say, have half the week off, enjoy it, soak it up, blow it, and then we'll worry about it come, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So the extended turnaround, they should be plenty. Nearly, a 10-day turnaround or something?
9 days, I think it was.
Yeah. One of the things I hate fans saying or trying to use as an excuse for a team going into a grand final is that because they had a tough game leading into it, are they going to be bruised and battered? Right. When you're a team that's made the grand final, you should be able to get yourself right when you've got at least 8 days to get ready for it.
Well, you see most teams really only have the one session before. They'll have the skills session, which Parramatta did yesterday and Penrith have done today for the cameras and showed everyone that. And they normally have probably a solid session either tomorrow or Thursday.
And have a Mickey Mouse one on Saturday.
The captain's run where they all go for a walk along the beach and fuck around and whatever, play a game of cricket.
Yeah.
Well, I remember a bit of a story here. In 2017, I got to hold up one of the banners or something with a few mates because Dad's mate was the owner of the company who were holding up the banners. It was the Melbourne Cowboys grand final, and the day before we actually went there for rehearsals. And it was interesting because during the morning, it was at 9 o'clock in the morning. Both teams were training on the Saturday, and it was literally, I'm pretty sure it was literally kicking practice. It was like a group of players, and it was literally, I think Cameron Smith was taking shots at goal, and Cooper Cronk was practicing his crossfield kicks or something. I just remember being sort of surprised by how relaxed it was. It wasn't even, you couldn't even call it a training. It was a kick around. So,
I think that, as you mentioned, a bit of that art is trying to keep the players as down as you can, realistically, because you want them, you want to throw a wet blanket over them and keep them as quiet and as calm as possible until you rev them up 10 minutes before they run out and play the game. So,
it's an interesting week. Penrith have been there before, and we'll see what Para bring to the table.
This is Penrith's first one, though, involving the community. The last two have been through COVID, where they haven't had as much, with the fans and that around them. So
2020, they couldn't physically, you're right, have fans around them, but
Yeah. We'll get to Penrith now. Anything else on either of these teams?
Well, who did we have 3-2-1? Obviously, I thought I'm with Ollie. I had
Shaun
Lane
Lane.
as the best player out there. He made a massive difference. RCG 2 tries and a really strong performance through the middle.
On him.
I thought
surely
he was
his
tremendous.
first choice prop for
Has to be
for Australia.
Him and Haas, you would imagine.
Well, Haas is out. So
Haas is out. Him and fuck knows now.
Tino will be there now.
Tino Cotter will probably come in on the bench, but
Just on that quickly, I don't think that Prime Minister's 13 game, at least for me, changed much in my head in terms of the Australian
fun to
side.
watch, and that was it. We'll get to that. We'll
it's
get
the
back.
Mickey Mouse.
We won't
thing.
analyse it.
I didn't take any notes, but
I didn't think we were, but I was just because it was built up as something that could have decided a couple of positions.
Later on. Lane, RCG 2.
I had Cotter for the one. I just thought he was the best player for the Cowboys by a fair stretch. The amount of work he got through and the physicality he took for such a little bloke through the middle of the field.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You could
give it a Cotter.
Yeah.
And our honourable mentions to Hiku, and look, we didn't really touch on Gutho. He was fine.
Yeah,
worked hard.
Inoffensive, you might say.
We'll get to the fullback.
I don't think I really. Off the top of my head, I can't really remember him flashing in and making any sort
we'll
of...
get to...
It also might not help what happened the next night with...
We're going to spend some time talking about another bloke in a minute, which we may as well get to now.